on Television 5. This is Saturday Town Council, a WTVF public affairs program which deals with the problems, needs, and interests of the community. Today's program is entitled Problems of the Handicapped. And now, our moderator, Bob Jimison, Public Service and Community Affairs Director for WTVF.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday Town Council. Our topic today is problems of the handicapped. And with me are three experts who have been involved with the handicap. One as a parent, one as a student, one as a child, and now one as a giver of services. And the person who is sitting next to me is Jill Copeland, who is the director of the Davidson County Association for Retired Citizens. Sitting next to her is Gay Hollins, interim teacher at H.G. Hill School. And the person on the end is Donna Wheating, who is a parent of a handicapped child and a consumer of services. Jill, could you tell us, well, before we go into that, there are about 50 million handicapped persons in this country. I don't know whether that figure represents both physically and mentally, but say 50 million people are a lot of people who are handicapped. And you are with an organization who provides services. Could you tell us something about the services for the handicapped?
The Davidson County Association for Retarded Citizens has an unusual function in the county, and we do provide some direct services, primarily the respite care program and the summer school program. And typically, most of our folks are mentally handicapped, but also those who are multiply handicapped with some physical disabilities too. We also serve as a planning and coordinating agency in Davidson County, trying to work with a number of community agencies who deliver more direct services than we. As a planning and coordinating agency, we need to try to be aware of the services that do exist, and of course we have found that there are gaps in services. We have a number of calls from parents or concerned people in the community telling us about services that a mentally handicapped person may need and where do they go to get them. Oftentimes we're successful hooking them up with the right agency or getting them to the right resource, but then many times the appropriate service does not exist. Or more often, as we're finding now, because of severe funding restrictions, there simply aren't enough available slots, if you will, in the agencies that exist. So we are experiencing a number of waiting lists that are growing. And so it is also a matter of not having enough of the services and also then having services that are not existent for various handicapped people.
About how many persons can you estimate are handicapped in Davidson County alone?
As far as the estimated prevalence figure that they use at the National Association for Retarded Citizens, we're talking of approximately 3% of the general population that may at some time during their life be retarded. Now, if that is accurate in Davidson County, and it's as close as we can get, I guess, it would include approximately 14,000 people who are mentally retarded. I don't know about the numbers for physically handicapped. Out of that 50 million, approximately then 6.6 million would be mentally retarded. So that means there are a number of other folks besides the ones we serve.
Okay, now talking about the 14,000, say, in Davidson County, what percentage of that 14,000 are receiving services? Do you have statistics on that?
No, and that's really hard, Bob, because approximately 90% of those folks are mildly retarded people. And they are not identified until they reach school age, when they're having very, very great difficulties in the academic setting. And often when they leave the school and the academic environment, they move right into the mainstream of society. So many of those mildly retarded people we're not aware of as needing services. 75% of them, if they've received the proper education and training, we expect to be self-supporting. So we're talking about approximately 15% of those folks who may need some sort of service, but it could be a day program, it could be vocational training, it could be a residential service, it could be just a respite care service or counseling to help parents and family through a time of crisis. So I really don't know. We can't get a handle on how many people really need services that don't receive them.
Okay, we are aware of the fact that there are different age groups in the society, well, in Davidson County. What percentage, which would be the higher percentage? Those, say, from birth up or from beginning school age on through junior high school or on through high school and then the adult age?
Actually, we see the greatest number of folks identified as retarded during the school years. We can identify the moderately to severely or profoundly retarded infants, of course, before school, because there are usually other handicapping conditions or some noticeable characteristics. But we don't identify so many of the youngsters until they get into school. And then again, we see the numbers decrease as they go into adulthood and leave the academic environment whereas where they have the difficulty learning the reading, the writing, and those kinds of skills, although they function very well in other aspects of their lives.
Parents who have handicapped children in Davidson County, do you think that they are aware of the many services that are available to them?
Unfortunately, I think probably they are not aware of a lot of services that are available to them. Many folks have not heard of the Association for Retarded Citizens or have never contacted us. And we've been having some hearings, some Title 20 hearings and some mental health, mental retardation hearings lately. And there have been a number of people who said they were not aware that this service or that service existed.
We're going to see some slides just a few minutes in reference to some of the services that are being given. But do you think the attitude of the parent in terms of seeking out services for a handicapped child is sometimes stifled by his own inability to know what is going on around him?
Yes, and I think that starts very early. For those parents who are told at the hospital, for instance, that they are the parent of a handicapped child, a lot of times that's the information they get, and that's all they get. They don't get the name of a person or an agency that they could contact. They don't know where to go. They don't know to whom to turn. And if they have not talked with or known a parent of a handicapped child, they have no idea, who to call next or who to see. And they are stifled because of that lack of knowledge. It's also a very difficult time for a parent. No parent wants to be the parent of a handicapped child. Everybody would like to have a normal, healthy, perfect baby, and it's a terrible shock. And they have feelings to work through, and sometimes that takes a while. And they don't seek services at that time, and they let it go. And then it's also a problem once they have made contact with an agency. Perhaps that's not the appropriate service, and they get turned down, or they get turned away, or they get put on a waiting list. And that happens to parents a number of times, that they may go from agency to agency, and the response is negative, or they're not encouraged, and some folks just give up. It's simply they get shuffled around so much that they don't know where to turn next.
Let's look at some of the services that are available. Could we see the slides? Yes.
These slides will be of the Davidson County Association summer program. Now, this particular program, I think, is a very good example of parent initiative and grassroots action. About 5 years ago, a group of parents were concerned because their children did not have any program, no formal structured program for the summer. A number of the children that we serve are severely handicapped. They do need some continued training, educational and recreational. And so the parents organized this program. We sponsor it financially and through our staff support, but the parents the users of the service raise a good portion of the money. And of course, we use some of our United Way money for this particular program. And then we do charge a tuition. But it's educational. They work to maintain self-help skills, and it's also recreational with a day camp emphasis. This is one of the direct services that the ARC helps to provide through its sponsorship.
You were talking about direct services. Are there also indirect services that the agency provides?
Yes, actually, we're trying to move out of what we refer to as the social services or direct services aspect. For years, we did have a social services component that was a rather large part of the agency, which means that our staff people work directly with clients, mentally retarded people. And of course, the summer school program is an example of a direct service, as is the respite care program. But basically, the ARC has an advocacy function and a planning coordinating function in Davidson County, working with and through parents to assist them, to aid them, retarded citizens who for some reason or another may have had rights violated, who do not receive services that they should because services don't exist or there's a catch, they can't get into them. We try to see that whatever services are needed can be provided by our community. So that's more of an indirect service. You know, we're working on behalf of those folks, but we're not working in a direct relationship with them.
Ms. Copeland, we'll get back to this. It's very interesting. Our next guest is Gay Hollins, who is interim teacher. How did your handicap occur?
It was a car accident. It happened a year and a half ago. And I was, as you say, one of the normal citizens that walk the streets very normally, physically, mentally, on level. Never ever imagined that I would ever be in a wheelchair or a walker or on crutches.
I think we have some slides too.
As you see here, this was, I believe, 3 weeks after the wreck occurred. I had multiple breaks in both my arms and my right leg. My jaw was broken. There you see me in the body cast that I was in for 2.5 months. I was in the hospital for 2 months and the body cast for 2.5 months. And there I am in the walker. And then right here, it's a week ago, I'm loading my sister onto the van that we have, the hydraulic lift, to take her places. The one thing that helped me was my sister. She cannot walk or talk or communicate except by Morse code. She was my, as you say, private cheerleader through all of this because the one question I asked her, how can you sit for so long not doing anything all day long? She said, well, you think a lot and you dream a lot. And it was nice to have her there. And my parents helped me through this immensely. I don't think I could have gone through this without my friends and family. It was very hard. The first thing that I had to realize was that I couldn't dance, I couldn't water ski, I couldn't do all the things that I did before. And here I was, the big talker before the wreck, oh, I could do everything. And now, you know, I'm limited. So people should realize that if they're going to be judgmental toward the handicapped, they should sit back and look at themselves. It could be them.
So the experience that you have had, I'm sure, was very traumatic. And we're going to see some more. I think this is your sister.
Yes, that's us cutting up, as we always do. We're reading a magazine right there. And we're talking right there, as you see, we're having a very serious conversation. On to with me telling her what to do. Now we're playing checkers. She plays checkers by putting letters on the discs, and she communicates with Morse code what letter for me to move. I'm fixing her hair and yakking with her. And as my dear sister, I lean on her shoulder for for the help. There, as you see her wheelchair, on her wheelchair there is a chart, the Morse code chart. So if anyone wants to communicate with her, she looks up for dot and to the right for dash. And she has the chart on her wheelchair. Right there you see the typewriter that she uses. She presses a button that's on her wheelchair with her foot, goes up on the chart that is in the box on the lower level, then onto the typewriter. Right next to the typewriter, as you see to the left, is the Morse code chart with also symbols for the for numbers and for dots and question marks. And as you see, her foot is pressing a box, and she's using. Now here I am at school. I'm working with the physically handicapped, but they're very intelligent. Yes, and there he is. He's working with his books at his classroom. Richie Woodham is a very good student. He's at 3rd grade at H.G. Hill.
Now are you going to teach the
Yes,
handicap?
I'm in special ed. I was a music teacher before the accident, and I'd quit teaching to go back to school and get my master's in music education. And I was approached with the idea of teaching music to the handicapped, because I have been with handicap all my life with my sister, her friends, and then the wreck occurred. Well, I had to sit back and think a little bit longer of what I was going to do with my life. I wanted to give up music. I wanted to give up everything. And with help from friends and my sister, she told me that I should work with the handicapped because they would accept me because I was handicapped. And I thought that'd be a good idea because I can relate. I have received the stares. I have been there. There was a time there when they were thinking that I was going to have my leg amputated. So I had to sweat that period out of whether I was going to look normal. And I went back into graduate school with the help of vocational rehabilitation. They helped me go back to school, graduate school, into special ed. And now I would like to teach music to the handicapped because music's meant so much to me.
How do you find, you're now in a classroom setting, if I'm correct, is there the normal children and the handicapped children now in the same classroom?
Yes, they are.
Okay, how do they look upon the handicap, and vice versa? How does the handicap look at the normal child? What's their reaction?
Well, the students adapt very well. In fact, they adapt so much to where they pamper the kids in the wheelchair. And the one thing I'm stressing to my students, that they should take care of themselves. They could think, they could talk, they could use their arms. If their legs can't work, then use those arms to push yourself, communicate more, make yourself more independent. And I'm now having them roll themselves from one end of the school to the other, and stressing to the other students to let them be more mobile in getting themselves to different locations.
What are some of the things that the handicapped can take advantage of at say H.G. Hill School? I understand it's a very well-equipped school in terms of services that are available in the school. What are some of the things that are available to the handicapped?
Well, I have a special ed room in which twice a week a physical therapist comes and works with the students on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have the necessary equipment for her to use, and I have a mirror for the students to watch themselves. The one thing that I am really impressed is that the students are in the normal classroom setting. They are able to do their own homework. And the one thing that I hope that these kids get from me is that they should get their books, they should pick up their papers, and they should take care of their own problems. A lot of the students want to help so much. They want to push, they want to take them places, and I feel the students should do that on their own.
We're going to come back to you. That's very interesting. Ms. Weaning, you're a parent of a handicapped child and a consumer of services. So you can talk in many different aspects out of a parent who has a handicapped child, some of the things that, you know, that you have gone through in terms of the whole thing of attitude. And I must kind of stick on that, because that is a big problem that I'm sure you had to overcome, or people who come in association with you. In your explanation, how has this gone from, say, day one?
Well, I think the first attitude I had to deal with was my own, because I think that I very basically was one of these people they've been talking about, the people who shun away from handicaps and from retardation. I think I was completely overwhelmed by the fact that I had given birth to a retarded child who later turned out to have also some other handicaps as well. I think from the beginning, the main problem was mine. The main problem was within myself in dealing with Laura. I think she's a very pleasant child and always has been a pleasant child to deal with, to take care of. She's easy to get along with, never any problems. She's a little bit stubborn as she's gotten older. She's, you know, just kind of a typical Down syndrome child in the way she performs in relation to other people. I think that people like myself are frightened by what they don't know and what they don't understand, and what has been blown out of proportion perhaps by other things that they have known. I think, you know, stories they've read or seen, movies, TV, whatever, about, you know, the retarded man who attacks small children, or, you know, throws them against the wall, you know, kills them, rapes them, whatever. I think that there's a lot of kind of basic ignorance involved in all our attitudes, including, you know, including my own. And I feel that overall that I have really been very fortunate in that Laura has always been a very charming child. She does immediately win people over, like in the grocery store. You know, she's going to get your attention. She doesn't care, you know, she wants you to relate to her. And I think people respond to that. I haven't felt the sensitivity perhaps that some parents feel, because she, you know, she's Down syndrome, but, you know, all of her extremities are, you know, like they're supposed to be, and this kind of thing. I find myself in the programs that Laura has been in, and she's been in all the infant stimulation programs in the Nashville-Davidson County since she's been alive, that I find it difficult at times to look at the other children without feeling some remorse and pity and this type of thing.
I think we have some slides of your daughter, and we can look at them now.
Okay. This is Laura at a very young age. She was possibly about 12 or 14 months old when that slide was taken. She was very slow to develop. This was taken at Kennedy Center when she was possibly about 2 years old. I'm not real sure about the dates. This picture was taken on the same day. Now this is at Outlook Nashville, where she was in the infant stimulation program for about 1.5 years. This is also at the infant stimulation program at Outlook, and this was one of their pool days that they got some good citizen from the community to offer them a pool to use for the children to work in. And this is graduation. Laura was the only Down syndrome child at the infant stimulation program, I might add. She was in among all the other children who have varying handicaps. There she is at Robertson Academy. That was at the Christmas program, and she had just about a week before, well, it wasn't even a week before, she had been in the hospital with a very severe bout with her heart. She had gotten digitalis toxicity and was a very sick child. But now this was taken just recently, just in the last week or two, with her on her walker. This has been just a real important part of her education. And of course, that obviously she is sitting on the potty having a big time with whoever took that picture. You know, the self-help skills that they've been teaching her at Outlook, now at Robertson Academy. In this picture, she is sorting shapes, I believe, in some kind of a jar. She's learning quite quickly. This is sign language. She's doing the sign for airplane. This is also sign language. Jan Oden, her teacher, is, there's a cow in her hand. You can't see the cow, but you know, Laura has progressed a great deal through the different programs she's been in.
Let me ask you this: how did you go about trying to find the services that would be available?
Okay, the first service found me. I had a friend who was working on a PhD in psychology at Peabody, and had a course with Dr. Bricker, I believe was his name, who had formulated the program that still exists at Peabody what is it called? Experimental School for Down syndrome children. And Laura started there when she was 6 weeks old. Now, the story since then hasn't been that you know, that easy. She went 4 days a week to Kennedy Center, and I went with her. They then cut our program back to 2 days a week. And about that time, I decided that if my sanity was going to hold, I was going to have to get back to work. So I went back to work. She was at Kennedy Center 2 days a week and with babysitters the rest of the time. And that just wasn't working out well. She was sick a great deal of the time. She has been a very unhealthy child up until she was about 2.5 years old. And half the time she couldn't even go to school. She had to stay with the babysitters. Okay. About the time she was 3.5, I believe it was in about 75, we had the opportunity to get her into full-time care with a family day home that was working with handicapped children, mostly retarded children. The woman who ran the home, Ms. Williams, was a teacher in the metro system. Her husband was a teacher also in the prison system. Well, that worked out so much better because the care was more consistent. She got more stimulation on a routine basis. We moved from there to the Easter Seal program, which helped a great deal. About the time she went into the Easter Seal program, she had begun to really gain weight and become more healthy because we had finally discovered that she had just chronic ear infections. This had been her main problem. And our pediatrician, who has been the greatest help we could have besides the services that are available in the community, you know, was determined he was going to find out what was wrong with this child. You just can't have a child who's sick all the time. And so, you know, we ended up with tubes in her ears. She started doing so much better, and Easter Seals just brought her along just beautifully. Well, their program folded, you know, just practically without notice. And that's how we came to the Outlook Nashville infant stimulation program.
Let me ask you another question. If a handicapped parent came to you and asked you, what kinds of services would you say are important for me as a parent? What would I look for? We're going to have to take a break right now, but we'll be right back on that question.
Okay.
When Metro firefighters first started talking strike, you were there with Eyewitness News.
Saturday Town Council, and today our topic is problems of the handicapped. And we have been talking with a consumer of the services, a person who is now a teacher, and also a person who provides services. And let me introduce my guest. Sitting next to my right is Jill Copeland, who is the director of the Davidson County Association for Retarded Citizens. Sitting next to Ms. Copeland is Gay Hollins, an interim teacher at H.G. Hill School of Special Education. And sitting to my extreme right is Donna Weaning, a parent of a handicap. And just before we went to the break, there was a question posed by her being a parent of a handicap. What would a good, quote, good recipe be to inform those who are looking for services about the kinds of services that they should receive?
Well, it's my feeling that after 6 years of this, that to keep a realistic point of view about your child. Find a service that you can be involved in, that you know what's going on with your child. Find a service that is also interested in you as the parent or the rest of the family. I think that one of the greatest helps to me when Laura was very small and when she was newborn was the parents of the other children who were in the program. At the Kennedy Center, this was one of the major parts of the program, was to involve the parents with each other as sounding boards for what you're going through and how you're feeling. I think in addition to keeping a realistic attitude about your child and what your expectations are of your child, have a realistic attitude about yourself and what you're going through. Realize that that you are in a state of mourning and depression. Don't be afraid to admit this to yourself, like so many of us who have gone through this have been. I really feel that keeping in touch with yourself and your child, and if you need help, ask for it. I feel very strongly about personal counseling for parents of handicapped children, as well as other family members of the handicapped. It is a great responsibility, and if you lose your realism about the whole thing, then you're just asking for more problems than you already have. It just builds and multiplies.
Jill, you are a provider of services. Could you kind of reinforce some of the things that you try to do with your service of what Mrs. Dunning has said in terms of, the individual self, first recognizing the fact that there must be something done. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are not receiving the service that would like to receive service but don't know how to go about getting it.
Yes, of course, we're primarily an organization of parents and for parents, and we work very closely with them, and they are the backbone of our volunteer system. And a number of them have experienced exactly the same kind of thing, and that was one of the reasons for the ARC to be a parent support group. And of course, there are professionals available for counseling services, but so often people don't feel that that's really necessary, or that maybe they're just admitting that they're not able to handle those kinds of things by themselves. I'm sure that many parents feel that they're the only ones who've gone through these kinds of things simply because they may not know another parent of a handicapped child. And there are agencies and there are associations like the ARC that anyone can call for help, and most of those folks will at least refer them to another source, Pediatricians, of course, can be extremely important at this point. There is a Down Syndrome Association that is relatively new and has been rather active. One of the services that we have been asked to provide by our ARC members is the respite care program. And basically what the program consists of is identifying the people in the community that we call respite care providers who are willing to take into their home handicapped youngsters and or adults so that their families, their parents, can have a period of respite. If they want to go on a vacation and can't take the handicapped person with them, or they're in school and they don't want to interrupt schooling, if there's a crisis and mother may be going into the hospital and there's no one willing or able to take care of a particular handicapped child, this service is relatively new. We have been doing it on a small scale for about a year now, and parents are saying over and over again now that they need a break, and they don't want to have their child go to Clover Bottom, for instance, for respite, or they can't find someone who would be willing to take care of the child for a period of time. So for a period of time from a day up to 2 weeks, they can place their child with a family, and the child remains in the family setting, and parents do get a break. And that seems to be extremely important for parents as they want to keep their handicapped child at home, and yet there are times that's an extremely difficult task, periods of crisis or whatever the family may be going through. So that kind of service is important, and that's one of the direct services that we provide.
Gay, could you tell us what is a typical day like at H.G. Hill for a handicapped child?
Well, the students come in on special buses between the times of 10 till 9 and 10 after 9. And my aide, Karen Fraser, and I unload the children, get them ready for their class, and roll them into their classroom. And then they go through the process of the regular classroom procedure all day long.
One of the myths is that people who are handicapped are not intelligent, quote, intelligent, whatever that means. But how do you find, have there been any experiments within the H.G. Hill or any testing in H.G. Hill in reference to where handicapped children fit into the whole score of academics?
Well, they are on the same level as a majority of the students as far as their intelligence are concerned. I find this true with my sister. She's very intelligent, and here she is, 34, an adult, and has to sit at home. It's nothing for her to do. No type of program. In fact, what Jill was talking about, the respite care, my mother is getting older, as we are, and when my wreck occurred, no one was able to take care of my sister. Here she was, an intelligent person and physically handicapped. She needs to be fed, dressed, bathed, and taken to bed. And this is the problem that we're facing now. If I had been permanently handicapped, it would have been the same for me. And I'm sure my mother couldn't have taken care of both of us. So I see the need for adult respite homes, especially for the physically handicapped. So many times I'm finding that the majority of the programs are for the mentally retarded. Yes, they're needed, but the intelligent, physically handicapped, I feel, are being ignored.
No, we talk about the programs being needed and and the services being needed, and all of us are suffering, I think, from the present period of inflation, which means that if there's not enough money available, then there's certainly going to be a lack of services to the people who are handicapped. What does the future hold for this, Jill? How are you going to be able to maintain a kind of operation that you're doing now?
I honestly don't know. We're hearing, of course, that the special ed budget, state education budget, was cut considerably. Title 20, which is the federal program coming into the Department of Human Services, has not received the federal appropriation. We're talking in terms of perhaps a 30% cut going into community programs, day programs for retarded people. The Department of Mental Health has, for the last several years, received a very small increase in the state budget. And coupled with those small increases or perhaps decreases in funding, we have the inflation rate. So that we're facing a very distinct possibility of having to cut back services, and that means serving less people. And at the same time, we have waiting lists that are growing because the need is there, but the funding isn't right now. So I'm not really particularly optimistic at this time. You know, the next 2 or 3 years could be extremely critical, and it may be a time when we see a lot of progress negated in some way because we're not going to be able to maintain. And it's also beginning to look as though there may not be money for new programs and the kinds of programs that Gay mentioned for those people that we have ignored or neglected for whatever reasons. It's going to be very difficult to institute programs like that.
Ms. Winning, are you still receiving services from the agencies?
Laura goes to the after-school program at Outlook Nashville. Mm-hmm. She's picked up by Outlook Nashville, thank God. She wouldn't be there mm-hmm. because both of us do work. She's there from like about 3 o'clock every day until we pick her up about 5:15, and we couldn't function without these services. We couldn't have functioned without any of them that we've been to. And presently, I'm hoping that Laura will stay at Outlook until they don't have any other programs that she can go into, because she, you know, the kind of just the kind of approach the agency has to handicapped people, of, you know, whatever their handicap is just really marvelous. We go in occasionally when the handicapped adult program is still in operation. You know, I don't know, they go home usually about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, but on occasion, you know, we get to meet some of them, and you know, just the attitude of the staff who work with these people, and with the volunteers who come in from, well, there are a few now from David Lipscomb High School and College, I believe, who are working with all the programs that are in the building, in the Outlook building. And, you know, it's just really a marvelous place. And marvelous that all of these services are still available, and it really saddens me to think that the federal government's pulling the rug out from under us.
Jill, you know, with the counseling services that you have, what is the hardest problem to deal with in terms of parents of handicapped children?
Gosh, I really don't know how to answer that. I think that possibly, well, there are a number of problems, and they come up at different periods in a person's life. But one of the problems certainly has to be with the severely handicapped person. Perhaps a behavioral disorder or difficult behavior to manage on top of mental retardation and maybe some physically handicapping condition. Multiply handicapped people have been ignored, and of course have been institutionalized up until the last 4 or 5 years, when we have begun a process of deinstitutionalization into our community-based programs, such as Mercy Home and Harris Hillman School. So we're beginning to serve those folks. The numbers are small, and yet we're definitely making progress. Parents, older parents, will always face the problem of what happens to my retarded family member or handicapped family member, and Gay's mother is probably facing this too when I'm not here. You know, what happens to those folks? The alternatives are group homes or nursing homes or Clover Bottom, You've got to have a residential alternative, and then a lot of those folks are in day programs, New Horizons, Outlook, Rochelle, or whatever. How do we maintain them? How do I get quality service? Do I really want my family member in a program after I'm gone? There's financial responsibilities. You can just name a number of them, and I don't know which one is the biggest problem. And I would imagine maybe that varies from family to family. But at the time that someone needs help or needs service, you know, then it's the biggest problem.
There's also one big thing that hangs over the whole handicap problem is the fact of the legal barriers that are sometimes very hard to. Could you speak to that subject on the legal barriers to the handicap? I know employment has been one of them for a long time and still existing, but are there others that come to mind that are important also, or that have been passed, some legal things that have been legalized, and then the handicap could go into?
Well, of course, one of the, and Gay is very familiar with this too, I'm sure, the federal legislation, Public Law 94-142, which is the Education for All Handicapped Act. The legislation is fine, and it was necessary, but there must be appropriations to implement laws. And sometimes I think that what happens in the legislative arena or what happens in the judicial process cannot always be carried out by those people responsible for carrying it out, or cannot be carried out to the fullest extent because of funding restrictions right now or inadequate appropriations. So we have that problem. The intent of legislation or court decrees is great, but we have to have some way of implementing it. And certainly we're serving more children in the metropolitan public schools, handicapped population, than ever before. And there are a lot of children who were denied services, which was the reason that the law was passed in the first place. But a lot of times you have conflict between rights and responsibilities. And you don't want to go too far toward either end of the pendulum. And so we do have problems like that to address.
Mrs. Weaning, what would you like to see, what areas of consumer services would you like to see agencies work with? Has everything been just plentiful and you could get everything you wanted? But I'm sure there are some thoughts that you have had with getting your child excellent services and so forth. What are some of the problems that you see that could be overcome by agencies if they, quote, had the money?
Now that question brings up 100 answers. I guess my concern right now is that services that are right for Laura continue to be there. I think as she grows older, after school care, I think there's a federal regulation that she can't go into the program that she's in is Part Title 20, and that program only allows them to go till they're 14. Well, what am I going to do with her when she gets to be 14? What am I going to do with her when she gets to be 22 and can no longer go to metro schools any longer? I think that DCARC and most of the other organizations that deal with not just retarded people, but with people with all kinds of handicaps, are becoming more and more aware that we've got to have the planning all down the line. You can't just put all of your emphasis on preschool daycare. You can't put all of your emphasis on infant stimulation or after-school care or home too or whatever. You've got to keep all of these things in mind because there will be other people coming along and they're going to need services too. So you've got to keep in mind that new babies are born and the other handicapped people are growing older, and even though You know, Harris Hillman is great, and Robertson Academy, where Laura is wonderful for preschool handicapped children. What happens to them when they get older? What are they doing with these kids when they get to be teenagers? I don't know. I haven't dared to go find out. I can only hope that Metro Schools is, you know, keeping up with the older children in the same manner that they are with the young children, and that the outside agencies are doing the same thing. And I think parent participation, which I am not always the, you know, the one who gets out there and works for DCARC, but I think that if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it.
So there is a job for the parents.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think it never ends.
Before I open the show, understand that May 12th through May 18th is going to be Handicap Week. What are some of the activities that will be going on that would be of interest to the general public?
I understand that there's going to be, I think some of the agencies or some of the services are going to have displays out at Hickory Hollow Mall. And I don't know exactly what Outlook has planned. There will be tours to various agencies or programs, you know, serving the handicapped folks. I'm sure that there will probably be some media coverage, public service announcements, maybe newspaper articles or whatever. Just an attempt to make people aware and hopefully encourage them to interact or try to interact either with agency folks or handicapped folks, so that you know, we begin to break down some of these attitudinal barriers that you've talked about.
Gabe, we have a few minutes to go. And I hope the Handicap Week will be a successful one, and I hope the audience, those who are listening and looking at our show, will certainly participate in and give their volunteer service of whatever they can do. A couple of minutes left. What are some of the services that you see that need upgrading within the public school system for the handicapped?
Well, within the public school system, I feel that everyone needs to be aware if they are quote-unquote normal, that it could be them, and that through this week I'm going to try to stress to the students and teachers that these students that are in wheelchairs are just like you and I, and they should take recognition during this week that the programs that need to be developed should be pushed more, as far as like when these students reach 21, they're out of the school system. So I would like to see Metro starting a program either on weekends or through the week for adults, and that these students that are at H.G. Hill will be prepared to know that there is a tomorrow after they get out of school.
Well, I think what we have been discussing, if we could give a quick summary, is one of the things that's very important is the fact that the attitude on the parent's part, as well as what he or she receives from that parent, determines a lot of the success of what this child is going to be. I think also that out of 50 million Americans who are handicapped, 14,000 are right here in Davidson County, and they themselves are not receiving the services. We can look at the future in terms of what's going on presently here economically. The inflation has us, and so some of the services somewhere will have to be upgraded, or the citizens, the parents of the handicapped, non-parents of handicapped will certainly have to get together and try to really get and maintain the kinds of services received. If you had one last thing to say, what would it be, Jill, in terms of what you would like to see?
I would really like to see a coalition of efforts, a combination of efforts involving parents, handicapped people, professionals of all disabilities or handicapping conditions, pulling together to develop what we like to refer to as a comprehensive service delivery system in Davidson County, which would provide from the time of birth, when we know a person is handicapped, through the adult years where we're experiencing some difficulty in providing programs for handicapped adults. But it's going to take all of us now because we're facing such a funding crunch.
Ms. Sweeney, what would be your last words in terms of a parent of a handicapped child? Most important thing that you see needs to be done?
Well, I feel the same way Jill does. I feel that we're going to have to work together to keep services available for everybody, because the money is not going to be there to just develop the way your particular bent is. You have got to share the professional expertise among the different programs, the different areas, you know, educational, medical, whatever, that is necessary to give the services that are needed by handicapped people. And it's going to take a lot of work by everybody.
Gay, do you have any last words for us?
Well, through this week, I hope that everyone will take the time to realize that they too could be in that situation, and that handicap are just like us, except for physically different.
Well, we really want to thank all of you for being on the program. As I've stated before, this month, the week of 12 through 18 will be Know the Handicap Week, and sometime people should go out and visit and see what's going on. I would hope that the services would certainly be updated, upgraded, and the monies appropriated for that will be sufficient in giving the kinds of services that the handicapped need. And we'll be back next month with a program of Saturday Town Council. And again, we want to thank Ms. Copeland, Gay Holland, and Donna Weening for appearing on our program. We'll see you next month.
Late night news is no one man's job. It takes a team to cover breaking stories and bring you new information each night. And nobody does that better than the Eyewitness News team. It's not a new concept with us. It's the way we do news. That's why The News at 10 is the one to watch on Television 5.
This is a test.